Folks, Anthony Fauci, he knew about it. He knew about the COVID lab leak. He covered it up. He made millions in the years around COVID. His diary reveals it. And by the way, gain-of-function research. You should talk about this at Thanksgiving. You should talk about this with your family. It's something that their tax dollars and yours, they go to every single day. If you're unaware, there are hundreds, thousands of underground labs. Underground in a figurative and literal sense in some cases. These places, they mess around like Ray Charles with microbes, bacteria, genomes, DNA strands, and viruses. They cook up biological weapons that can be deployed on the population in random tests or when they want to wipe out a country. They do this all the time, by the way. We know about the times that they have tested it on American soil. In September of 1950, more specifically, the military conducted a secret biological test off the coast of San Francisco known as Operation Sea Spray. From September 20th to September 27th of that year, a U.S. Navy ship sprayed massive clouds of Serratia marcescens and Bacillus, excuse me, when I pronounce the Latin shit, it messes me up, but Bacillus globiglii bacteria into the air offshore. This was a test in order to see how biological agents would disperse over a populated metropolitan area during the Cold War. Roughly 11 residents developed severe infections. One elderly man died from complications after his urinary tract was infected, keeping with the theme of the number 11. 1,100 pages of Fauci's diary was released by Rand Paul just before this testimony that was supposed to happen, the day before, as a matter of fact. And the lie we were all told back in 2020 that the virus rose up naturally in a wet market in Wuhan, which, by the way, really racist looking back. And now that I've evaluated it from like the lens, even back then, from now, I was like, in my heart, I know that Chinese people, they might be eating some weird shit, but it's in a way more racist to assume that they eat bats so frequently in that country that something like this can happen. It's more racist to assume that. We know it was a lie. They knew it to be a lie. And more specifically, Fauci knew it to be a lie. On February 1st, 2020, early, this is before the March 17th lockdowns that really started to kick in. I remember that's when my school had its last day. You know what I mean? It was a really intense time of the year. We were really starting to pick up on, this thing that was discovered in China might actually be a little bit of a problem. February 1st, 2020, his diary recorded a meeting with a bunch of credited virologists, only two of which supported the idea of the natural origin theory. So the rest all suspected that the virus might have been created artificially because, not least because a leading scientist in Wuhan, Shi Zhengli, excuse me, it's tough Chinese names. He was known to engage in the sort of gain-of-function research that could produce such a result. Folks, we were full-blown retard back in 2020. Fauci was huge buddies with the media. He quashed the opinions of other scientists. He was, the leak happened right next to the Wuhan virus lab. Fauci openly, publicly pushed the Wuhan market lie. You may be curious, what was he writing about privately at the exact same time? Let's travel back into his journal to January 26, 2020. Early! That's really early. The diary suggests that by January 26, 2020, Dr. Fauci believed that the virus had not originated in the Wuhan wet market, often identified as the source of the natural origin by the natural origin advocates. This didn't stop him, though, as his allies and whatnot painted skeptics of the natural origin theory as politicized cranks and conspiracy theorists. Folks, if you haven't woken up and seen the idea that Western medicine, modern medicine, is its own religion now, it's got the same priests and cloaks where people just want to go. They want to get all the answers from people that they assume have studied it their entire lives. It has the same dogma, the same don't question the doctrine attitude. Wake the fuck up. You're the crank. You're the unthinking. You're the loser Oxford shoe licker if you're really still out there ready to die for the vaccine. Listen, that's the liberal that goes too often, question everything. Look at me. I'm so smart because I question Christians. I mean, don't ask me my opinion about Muslims. I grew up with a Catholic crank family and I'm mad about it. I hate Trump. Did you hear me? I hate Trump. I win the I hate him contest. Like, it was the lazy answer to say that COVID was all Trump's fault back in 2020. It wasn't great. The handling was awful. It was not what anyone would have wanted from a leader. But it was ridiculous of us to expect him to be a normal leader, in all honesty. I'm just going to be honest with you. That was one of the main reasons that he lost back then, because the handling was so disastrous. Nobody liked it. But to say that the scientists and the media, too, did not have some responsibility for lying to us, withholding the truth that they knew was verifiable so they could get another book or another HBO series deal. Look, listen, on July 14th, 2020, he wrote, "I told the White House aide, Alyssa Farah, that the White House, either Meadows or POTUS, needed to shut up Stephen Moore and stop his publication of Dr. Wrong paper. If he does not, the entire academic community will dump all over the President of the United States." That's a threat. That's a threat. Like, listen, made to the President of the United States. How much power does this guy have? He was lying when he claimed that he spoke for the general consensus. Fauci wrote to himself back in May 2020, "The situation with my national and international fame is explosive and really unimaginable. It is not a hyperbole to say that today I am the most famous and talked about person in the country and one of the most recognizable in the world." During a meeting in 2024 with members of the House Oversight Subcommittee, he attempted to distance himself from the public lockdown policy. He said he had no input, no say on the matter when it came to any sort of policy making. However, that really sucks for him because March 15th, 2020, he wrote that then New York Mayor Bill de Blasio, New York City Mayor, not Mayor of New York, the state, but New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, decided to close the city schools based on a conversation that he had then had with Fauci. And then, quote, "I went on to tell him that he should close the bars and the restaurants in New York City. He said that he would based on my recommendation." A 2024 study published in Scientific Reports found that the pandemic and subsequent lockdowns resulted in worsened development of social cognition skills in early childhood, particularly for students of lower socioeconomic status. Everybody remembers how bad the lockdowns were. Everyone remembers the sacrifice that they were making to stay at home all day with their children. It was miserable for a lot of these people. And ladies and gentlemen, they did not give it to him lightly, and they shouldn't. I'm going to say it. This stacks up to where this man needs to be persecuted, and many people will go, "Well, what about Trump?" You can make the conversation whatever you want. This is what we're talking about today. I'm not saying that Trump doesn't deserve, don't talk about his mishandling of the pandemic. You should talk about it. And maybe there should be legitimate conversations that, and then people would be like, well, he had presidential authority. So technically anything that he was doing, can be protected by the idea that he was operating in the best interest of the country or whatever. So it would be really hard to persecute the president in general. However, just because, one person handled it poorly and more specifically the president handled it poorly, that doesn't mean that everybody else is let off the hook. It doesn't mean that every other person is we're going to forget all of the sins of the people like Dr. Fauci, where, the dogma around this person, the attitude mentally and physically. You would have your own family members ready to die for this man. You would have your own family members looking at you at Christmas. And if you had anything weird to say about the vaccine, if you had anything weird to say about myocarditis, if you had anything weird to say about the risks that it had towards elevating cardiovascular events for young men, they would look at you like you're mental. And it's like, listen, you don't live your life well. Like most of the people that got the vaccine, it was the people who didn't live their lives well. They're smokers. They're people that are elevated cardiovascular disease risk, as in they're fat and whatnot. Those people obviously should be taking the vaccine. But when it came to a blanket notice, all of you need to take it the same amount, that was never a good idea. And it had some serious effects. People died, unfortunately, of the COVID vaccine. If you don't believe me, you can look it up. It's verifiable. It's true. And that's why I believe that there should be some accountability for especially the people that we've entrusted to protect us. Especially where we were putting him in such high positions of power, and it seems like the majority of his personal writings was all focused on what this means for him, what this means for his future, what this means for his fame. He was a deeply egocentric prick, and I love this. I'm a big fan of accountability. I'm a big fan of people getting public lashings, and this was a public lashing. Listen, this was a deserved one. A former National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease Director, Dr. Anthony Fauci, he invoked the Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination a lot during Wednesday's contentious, let's just use that word, Senate hearing examining the origins of COVID-19. The hearing, led by Senate Homeland Security Panel Chairman Rand Paul, followed the recent release of more than 1,100 pages of Anthony Fauci's personal diary entries kept by him between 2019 2019 and 2022, excuse me. Senator Paul highlighted excerpts from the diaries, alleging they demonstrate private doubts by Fauci regarding the virus's natural origin and early mortality estimates that differed from his public messaging. Committee Republicans argue the journal entries revealed an internal inconsistency regarding mask guidance, school closure, federal grant oversight for viral research in Wuhan, China. In his opening remarks, Dr. Fauci defended his decision to decline answering questions, citing what he characterized as a campaign of personal intimidation and political attacks by the committee leadership. He cited advice from his legal counsel. Fauci maintained that his decades of public service were guided by evolving scientific evidence, while accusing lawmakers of organizing the proceeding to seek criminal referrals. So following his refusal to testify, Chairman Paul announced that the committee will vote on a resolution certifying contempt of Congress. Panel Democrats criticized the proceedings as a partisan exercise, ridiculous, defending Fauci's leadership during the national public health crisis because they can't recognize internal inconsistencies. And that's okay. That's perfectly fine. By the way, not all Democrats are this stupid. Like, to make it sound like all Democrats are going to still stand by Fauci it's insulting to their IQ. And I understand there's going to be quite a few that will be that type. There's quite a few that are like, well, Trump, you need to talk about Trump instead. Like, they can't have any other conversation around COVID where they're like, we don't want to talk about what the CDC was doing. We don't want to talk about what the director of this agency was doing. We don't want to talk about the public health, how that actually might have been affecting us more negatively than the virus itself. We don't want to talk about any of that. That's enough. It was pathetic. It was a very pathetic way to, make a point, get a point across, but it's still what some of them are willing to do. Don't assume that it's all Democrats, though. Not all Democrats are that stupid. Only a few of them are.
Senator Hawley. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, nothing says honesty like taking the fifth, huh, Doc? Let's try something. What day of the week is it today?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color tie are you wearing?
That's a trick question. It's a black tie with white dots. It could be a white tie with black pattern.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color is the carpet in front of you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Let's just get one thing straight. You don't have any rights under the Fifth Amendment because you've been pardoned, as you very well know. As the Supreme Court has been clear for a century and more, Brown versus Walker, 1896, when he has been pardoned, he may not stand upon his privilege. You know that. Your lawyers sitting behind you now shifting nervously in their chairs. They know it. This isn't about the Constitution. This isn't about the law. This is about contempt. Contempt for this body and contempt for the American people. But I think I know why you're doing it. It's because you don't want to answer questions. It's because you did all kinds of terrible things. It's because during the pandemic you got rich, didn't you?
He did.
You got rich. While people were dying, hundreds of thousands of Americans, over 1 million in the end, and you were getting rich, and not only were you doing that, you were using federal employees.
Anyone who wants to hear this conversation and go, well, what about Trump, that's not a reply. That's not a dismissal of Anthony Fauci's crimes.
With taxpayer money to apply for and solicit cash prizes for you personally. Cash prizes totaling over $1 million. You did all of that during the pandemic, didn't you? That's a question.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
If you believe this man exudes innocence, not even get your eyes checked, kill yourself.
You remember Greg Folkers? Who was that?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Your chief of staff is the answer. Do you remember Patricia Conrad? Who was that?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
She was your personal assistant. And what were these individuals doing in the depth of the pandemic in November of 2020
He's like, okay, by the way, body language experts, they'll tell you one of the first things that a lot of guilty people do is they start rubbing themselves. You know how Trump, he sits with his arms crossed a lot of the times? It looks like he's hugging himself in his chair. It's something that people will do to comfort themselves if they're not normally used to that sort of like, I noticed it was big during his first term. Every time you would see him in the Oval Office, he'd do this like hugging himself. Look back at old footage of Trump, especially during the first term. He used to do it a lot more then because he didn't feel nearly as confident in this role, but he used to hug himself a lot in those rooms, especially in Oval Office meetings, because it's a sign that the person's deeply uncomfortable. It's a sign that the person it can be used to sort of point out guilt, but it's not a for sure giveaway thing. That's not exactly how body language works. But I'm just saying that this is like it's a drop in the bucket of a natural, like, listen, the 5-gallon bucket is overflowing. Like, there's thousands of gallons that have been dumped in it, and it's all poured out on the side. But this is just another drop in the bucket of the guilt that just exudes from the man that is Anthony Fauci. Whatever.
When millions of Americans were suffering from COVID, what were they doing? I tell you what they're doing. Folkers was on your behalf soliciting and gathering information for a cash award. Let's look at it. We've got his email right here.
Yes.
Right over my shoulder. Volker says, I'm working on this nomination for the Dan David Award for Fauci. We need to beef up the COVID part. Do you have language in the can that you could share that delineates how we responded in new ways to COVID? He sends this to multiple federal employees. What was the Dan David Award? Do you remember, Doc?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
It was a $900,000 cash award. $900,000 cash award.
Can anyone who is I'm a big Fauci fan? Can anyone in the comments, please? I welcome anybody to just respond to this.
And he got it because he used federal employees to get it. And this wasn't the only award, was it, Dr. Fauci? In fact, you applied for and received at least 8 other federal cash prizes on federal time using federal employees and federal resources. Here they are over my shoulder.
Okay, here are the employees he used to apply for awards. Greg Folkers, Lawrence Tabak, Holly Half, I believe. I believe it's pronounced half because it's Jaffe. God, whatever. It could be Jaffe. Patricia Conrad, Courtney Billette, Lewis Miller, Catherine Miller, and Hugh Akinoklas. Jesus Christ, he has a tough last name.
Besides the Dan David Award, you've got the Partnership for Public Service, you've got the Adelson Prize, you've got the Smithsonian Award, you've got the National Academy of Medicine's Award, you've got the CDC Foundation. In fact, you turned your staff into a full-time application machine. You actually wrote to people and said, do you think maybe I qualify? And you got cash for all of this. And it wasn't just 1 or 2 employees, was it? In fact, you used 8 separate federal employees on federal time using federal resources to solicit cash awards. Isn't that true?
On the advice of counsel, Fauci, like I told you, the Italians are the Jews of Europe.
Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Here they are right over my shoulder. Here's all of them. The people that you use, federal employees, so that you could go and get cash money. And the most hilarious part is that you weren't content to even dragoon them into...
Guys, if you don't get the picture already, it was the Fred Figglehorn music video, Cash for Christmas. Anthony Fauci was dancing around. He was going, cash, cash, money, money. That was all COVID was for this guy.
Applying for all of these cash awards, you then have them go out to the ethics agencies and ethics watchdogs and demand that you be able to get the money. That's right. We've got it in your emails. Your staff and employees on federal time, using federal resources, being paid with federal dollars, are soliciting cash for you, and then they're turning around and saying to the agency, we don't want just an answer, we want to get to yes, because Fauci wants the money. He wants it. We want to get to yes, and yes takes time. This is your chief of staff again, using federal email to pressure the agency's own ethics people so that you can get money, so that you can get rich. And it violated the law, didn't it, Dr. Fauci? Didn't it? It violated the law, didn't it? It is a question.
Is that a
You can
question?
answer. Go ahead.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Federal law, as you very well know, prohibits the solicitation of cash awards or other personal benefits for federal employees.
Uh-oh.
And it certainly prohibits using your own employees to do this. 5 CFR section 2635-205B. It says it right there in black and white. You cannot use federal resources, federal dollars, federal employees, federal offices, federal email, federal time to solicit cash awards.
So
And you did
he
all
violated
this.
the law.
And the worst part is thousands of people were dying while you were doing it. You were supposed to be the nation's doctor, and you're playing one on TV, but this is what you were doing with your time. Isn't that true?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see why. I can certainly see why. You know what I can't quite figure out is that why you...
That's the whole point of the Fifth Amendment. It protects you from self-incrimination. The only reason that you would ever use it is you have something to hide.
so obsessed with it because you're
He
all-
sounds like Epstein during his testimonies. He sounds like Epstein going on the advice of counsel. It was a very common line for him, which I love. It's 10 out of 10. It's beautiful, and I think he's very well trained. I'll give him that. I would love to be his lawyer.
Rich. I mean, and your scheme worked here. I mean, your net worth now is north of $12 million.
Good for him.
You got over $1 million in cash awards during COVID, during a 12-month, 24-month span during COVID. $1 million you
Wow.
got down in cash money using
Cash
federal
money.
resources. Now you're worth more than $12 million. You've got a pension that in its first year paid out north of $400,000
Nice.
a year.
Baller.
1 million people dead, you're getting rich. 1 million people dead, you're using federal employees to get cash awards for you. 1 million people dead, and you're here taking the fifth because you don't want to admit that what really happened in all that time was a multi-month, multi-year course of self-dealing. Isn't that true, Dr. Fauci?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my
This
rights
is pathetic.
under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Yeah, well, silence is admission. And here's the real thing. At the end of the day, it wasn't just about the money, really, was it? It was really about a power trip. I mean, through all of this, you want to be the most famous scientist in the world. You were so focused on getting every award and every drop of cash that you could, all because you wanted to be on TV. You wanted to be the sun god of science. You wanted to be the guy who was in charge of it all. You wanted to lambast Trump. You wanted to make sure that nobody else stole your spotlight. You wanted to be the guy. You had time to sit for InStyle magazine. Here's what you were doing with your time. You could sit for InStyle magazine, but you can't answer questions for the American people.
I love how the subtitle is "The Good Doctor," Anthony Fauci. He definitely approved that. I love this. Anthony Fauci is one of my favorite people because get the Cash Money song playing right now. Hell yes. Cash money, money. Oh, Billy Bob is. Hell yeah. This was, man, millions of people dead. No, just what I need. Money, 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 money. Money, 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 money. All right, that joke got old real quick.
You could sit for InStyle magazine, but you're here taking the fifth. You could sit for InStyle magazine and get $1 million in cash awards. But now the cat's got your tongue. I bet he does. I tell you what, here's my conclusion from all of this. This was really all about you the whole time. Somewhere along the way, you lost your way. You may have been a good public servant at one time, I don't know. But I can tell you from reading your emails now, from looking at what you did, how you used your employees, somewhere along the line, it became all about you. You became a narcissist and a megalomaniac and a liar. And you've lied to the American people, and you've lied to this body. And you've disgraced your profession by doing it. You called yourself the most famous scientist in the world. You've done more to harm science than anybody in my lifetime. And I hope you'll go home and write that in your diary.
That was 10 out of 10.
Thanks, Chair.
Josh Hawley, ladies and gentlemen, you don't have to agree with all of his politics, but you gotta admit he got him, ladies and gentlemen. Because I'm not having enough fun with this, and I'm just enjoying my time so much. This testimony was one of my favorite political events to happen, maybe in the last 5 years. I'm having so much fun with this. Okay, here is the moment, obviously, when his defense counsel, his lawyers and whatnot, needed to be removed because let's just put it this way: you can't have your guy sitting next to you the entire time whispering words in your ear.
At the table, you insist on sitting at the table, and we told you would not be recognized. You are not invited here for testimony, sir.
Get his lawyer out.
Being disruptive. Would you behave this way in a courtroom? No, because the judge would put you in jail. I can't do that today, but I can have you escorted from the premises. So I would say, sir, sit quietly and don't say another word. I said, sit quietly, you are not recognized. Another word and you're gone.
Very well. This guy looks like the G-Man. It's quiet.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to hear what the attorney has to say.
The attorney's not recognized.
He's not recognized by the committee or the chair. If he speaks again, he will be removed from the room. This testimony is from Anthony Fauci. This is not a game with his lawyers. He can advise, his lawyers can give him advice. He's got a half dozen here. They're all allowed to talk to him.
Yes.
All right? Yeah. But the attorneys are not recognized. In fact, the attorney was told not to sit at the table, and he's not obeying that recommendation. There's a row behind you, sir. That's where you were told to sit, and you're not. And now you're disrupting the proceedings. And so, look, this is the way Anthony Fauci wants to be remembered. For a lawyer not listening to the rules. That's the way you want to be remembered, and that's what you're going to do. You are not recognized, sir. Security, please remove him from the room.
Get him out! He then proceeds to, waste everybody's time by tucking away his files, putting them away and whatnot. He's like, fine, if you want me to leave, I'm going to take my damn sweet time with it. And listen, Senator Rand Paul said he is going to move the Senate Homeland Security Committee to a vote next week on whether to hold Anthony Fauci in contempt of Congress, which they should, after the federal government's former top infectious disease expert repeatedly invoked the Fifth Amendment during a hearing Wednesday. The reason he's not answering anything is because he does not want to go to jail. Can you make that, listen, that's his right. His right is that he doesn't want to go to jail. He has every right to stand up for not wanting to go to jail.
You're not a hero. Unfortunately, you're a villain.
Who the do you think you were for doing that?
Republican after Republican on the Senate Homeland Security Committee unleashed on Dr. Anthony Fauci Tuesday as he declined to answer any of their questions. In his opening statement, Fauci claimed Committee Chairman Rand Paul wants to prosecute him.
That the sole reason he is calling me before this committee is to get me to say something, anything, that could vindicate his repeated public pledges that I end up, in his words, quote, behind bars.
After that, Fauci offered what became a familiar refrain.
I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Fauci had received a preemptive blanket pardon from former President Biden, but Senator Paul put Fauci on notice that he didn't think that pardon applied here.
It's against the law to obstruct an investigation of Congress.
Fauci's lawyers said in a statement that he was...
By the way, what did he need a pardon for? If he was... And by the way, everybody's going to go, they were going to weaponize the justice system. They wouldn't have been able to persecute him on anything if they didn't find anything. This whole weaponizing the justice system bullshit, the only times that they've weaponized the justice system against anybody is when there's something to prosecute on. Unfortunately, it's that they raided my home unfairly. Well, they found documents in there, and they found something that you weren't supposed to have. So most of the time when I hear about this weaponizing the justice system stuff, unfortunately, it's like, okay, yeah, but you were hiding something. That's what happened with Trump. That's what happened with Anthony Fauci right here. It's like you were hiding. There's an investigation because you're a criminal.
Quote, solid legal ground when asserting the Fifth Amendment, and Democrats came to Fauci's defense.
This hearing is the culmination of a years-long crusade
Senator Paul has long accused Fauci of lying to suppress the theory that the virus leaked from a lab in China, a lab that Paul says received U.S. government funding.
It's not even that Paul is the only one saying it. They did.
Research to make viruses more transmittable.
Yes.
He does bear responsibility here for perhaps the worst medical decision in our history, and that is to fund dangerous research in a less than safe lab in a totalitarian country, creating respiratory viruses that have increased pathogenicity and increased transmissibility.
Now, Senator Paul said he'll move for the committee next week to vote on whether to hold Dr. Fauci in contempt of Congress. But that would have to overcome a lot of big hurdles in the Senate in order to pass and then be referred to the Justice Department.
How about, like, jail? I think that's a fair thing. Listen, you can say whatever you want, but if you are the type that is if you're the type to say, there's nothing here, this is a witch trial, they're coming after an innocent person, he's laughing at you, and you are the exact person that he's always needed to get the... Listen, just like you love to make fun of Trump and the people that support him because you're the reason that he gets away with all of it. You're the reason that Anthony Fauci's getting away with all of this. You are the reason. The people that will not question this, the people that will go, this is all... They're not going to find anything. They're not... And his diary, if anything, it just shows that he was conflicted. Honestly, I'm open to conversation. I'm open to any person's interpretation. But the verifiable things we have on the table right now, I think are enough to strip him of all legitimacy he's ever had as an infectious disease person, an individual to be taken seriously, someone who speaks for the scientific community. No, there's no speaks for the scientific community. That's not how science works. And the people who want science to work that way are like Catholics. They're like Jews. They're like, we are going to Kabbalize the things that we all know to be true. We're going to Kabbalize the spiritual realm so that we can create this underlying thing where we can control people's lives, whether that's through sexual abuse or whether that's through the systems that they live through every single day, like lockdowns. We're going to enforce our beliefs on them top down. We're going to enforce vaccine mandates that are going to get shot down by the Supreme Court that Biden is then going to try to force forward through. Like, let's be honest here. Top down control is coming down to affect you no matter who you think is going to do it. It's Trump, he's trying to take over all of our lives. Trump and Biden are on the same team. I'm sorry to break it to you, they're both clones. They are both clones that are working to service the grand vision, which is you put this widget together, go home and do drugs. To go home, do drugs, sleep, and redo the day so that we can continue to go on a yacht and kill little girls. That's what... If you haven't figured it out by now, that's fine. It's like... It'll take you a while, I guess. Ladies